right, welcome back to season four, episode 8 and 9. This is going to be a really powerful conversation today. I have Robert Baker with us today. He is a consultant helping other men to try to get on the right path in life. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Robert, where you're from and what you do, and then we'll get into the topic.
Thanks, Darren. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you for the invitation to join you. I live in London and work in London, although I have clients across Europe and elsewhere in the world. And what I do in my day-to-day business is basically work with companies to help the men in those companies understand more about the challenges that they're facing, to talk and open up about the challenges they're facing, and to address how they can be perhaps better allies to others in the workplace, and how they can do more to foster really inclusion. Because as we know, there's a real challenge, I think, in certainly some companies and some societies right now, with with how men are looking at their inclusion, how men feel about their position in society, their position in life. So I'm tackling all of those things right now with the companies and the men that I'm talking with.
Yeah, so take us a little bit through the journey of how you got started. Did you form a business with someone else, or did someone, like come to you and maybe you had some consulting business ideas with that person and kind of formulate it that way? So how did it all get started, if you don't mind me talking through your
No, no,
journey?
no. Absolutely. So really, it got started when I left the corporate world. I kind of retired, but decided that I didn't want to just kind of play golf and go on cruises and do stuff that maybe many other people enjoy. But for me, I wanted to stay active, busy, working. I feel I had a lot to contribute still, and so I set up my own business with the specific aim of working with companies to help, particularly men, get more engaged in inclusion, and help them address some of the issues that they're facing around how they feel about being men in society today. So basically, I set up my own business, but I collaborate a lot with others. So you'll see me also talking about other men that I'm working with, people like Daniele Fiandaca, who's worked on this whole program called Hard as Nails to get men to paint their fingernails, to get in touch, and empathy with with that, and then men like Elliot Ray, who are very much proponents of parenting out loud, that men get involved in parenting and really sort of speak up about it in the workplace. People like Lee Chambers in the UK, who is a very strong advocate for male allyship. So I collaborate with a lot of other people, particularly other men working in this space, and for me, that makes it interesting because I learn from them. Hopefully, they learn a bit from me. But by doing it together, we're also stronger as well, and have a louder voice. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah, and that's wonderful to hear, Robert. I think that, you know, us men, we need a lot more help in life, and that support system that you're giving them is going to make a difference because there's a lot of men that are struggling in this life, including some of my closest friends.
Yeah,
You can't help everybody, and when you do a show like this, and you have men coming and asking you for things, it's just like you want to help the world, right?
yeah,
But you can't help everybody, and sometimes
mm,
you have to, you have to say it in a nice way without being mean or derogatory to someone. Because there's a lot of men that reached out to me. Unfortunately, one of a close friend of mine had, committed suicide about last year.
yeah,
And so I wish the brother, well in his life. Um, I just wish that he had came to me before he did what he did.
yeah,
Um, and it's so disheartening to hear that men are more likely to kill themselves than women because they feel like they don't have an outlet to go to. And
yeah,
what we do here at the Men's Talk Show is we try to be their support system. We have a whole Discord chat. We refer them to resources if they need help with finances.
yeah,
If it's brothers that might know business ideas that can kind of link up together to kind of get them to facilitate their own business and start off. making money. We have done a lot to help men over the years, but when you sit here and you do this talk show for 4 years, you learn so much about different men
Oh
across
yeah,
the whole world. Like I've
yeah,
talked to men in Sweden, I talked to men in Japanese, Chinese,
mm,
I talked
yeah,
to people in American. Like I talked to a whole lot of different nationalities throughout my years of doing this show. And it's beautiful to see that some people have grown from this show and gone on to do a lot bigger and better things. And what I want to do with this show is I want to continue to be that advocacy for men to come and talk when they don't have any other body to talk to.
yeah.
Um, that's very important for me. That's the whole reason why I named the men's talk show instead of the Duran's talk show, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in a way, what you're doing is listening, and I
Mm.
think you could also call it the men's listening show because I
Wouldn't
think
have a nice ring to it.
but I mean, I think we do need to listen to each other, and I think often as men, we learn to talk because we're expected to talk, and we haven't been historically so good at listening to each other, and I think so. It's one thing certainly to encourage men to be more open with each other about the challenges they're facing. I think we really need to do that, but I think also we need to encourage us all to listen as well. When so someone is opening up, I think it really is important to listen rather than what many of us tend to do, which is kind of dive in with the solution immediately or come in with their own point of view very quickly. I think that whole art of listening is really underrated and undervalued. But
Mm,
what you're doing, it sounds to me, is you're listening as well as talking, and I
mm.
think but the listening part is really really important. I think.
Yeah, because men need someone to listen to because you don't realize how many people have had divorces in their life and
Yeah,
their spouses is not really listening to them. They're listening to them, but they're not really listening to them, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
And they just want someone to be there to support them and guide them. And I feel like that's what our talk show has been able to do over the years. We've been there to just listen. Sometimes I just let my guests just vent or just talk out whatever they want to talk to,
yeah,
instead of me just asking a bunch of questions. I'm going to ask questions, but I'm going to center it around those kind of conversations that I think is most relevant to their life.
yeah,
And it's important for people to be able to have those, you know, listening skills in order to understand what people are saying in their life, because they could be saying something that's very life threatening, or they could be saying things that are alluding to, they're about to X themselves. You know what I mean? So you have to
mm,
really be in keen and flip the conversation around and make it something positive. So they feel like, that's another person that not listening to me. So why should I even live? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So it's
Well,
important.
yeah,
And go ahead.
absolutely. I mean, one of the things I'm seeing right now is that younger men, especially, in some circumstances, are struggling because they're finding it harder to get on the financial ladder that maybe their parents did or that the older generation did. And sometimes you've got individual men in particular situations where they're really struggling to make ends meet and struggling to be successful. And what I have found is that I can be mentor to some of them, and that's actually what I try and do is to share the wisdom, the knowledge that I've generated over the years. I mean, so Darren, I need to confess, I'm now 70 years old, right? So, I've got a lot of experience, right? Okay, and I can pass some of that on. But you need to to go back to my point. You need to be able to listen to younger men talk about it. But if you can do that, then you really do provide some great value to them. So there's a guy at the moment I'm working with, who I'm mentoring, who is probably in his early 30s, trying to get his business working. He's living on his own. He's finding it challenging.
Sounds like
He's
me.
well, yeah, and but like I'm there for him. We have WhatsApp connection, and so we message each other. I message him. He's in Brussels, so when I'm in Brussels, I see him when I'm coming from London to Brussels, or we do a video call in between, to keep in touch. But he said to me recently, he said, like, you're taking an interest in me, and not that many people are taking an interest in me. And I'm very happy to take an interest in him because I think that's something I can do to give back. And he's a really nice guy. So I want to support him. Um, but there are times when he is really down and he's struggling with things, And so then you're trying to find the bright spots all the time when you're talking with him to help him see, yes, look, people do care about him. There are some possibilities. There is some hope, and but that work is really, really important, I think. And I feel really privileged that I can do that kind of work with some of the people that I'm working with, because I learn a lot about their struggles in life, and I think we're here to help each other, right? So I want to be there for them because there are people that have been there for me as well. So that's kind of, I think we give back, right? Especially in these circumstances, what goes around comes around, hopefully.
Yes, it is, but there are people out here, as much as I've done the show and I interview a lot of people, there are negative people in the world that say, "Oh, you need to have this done. You need to, you're a man. Why are you asking for help?" There are very negative people out here. And so that can be very, disingenuous of a person to turn away somebody because they act like they've never been in that situation. But I know for a
Yeah,
fact, if you are a human being, you have been in the worst of the worst in this life. We all have been. So we
yeah,
can't sit up here and try to act like we're better than that person because they're asking for help. You know,
yeah,
you don't know if you can be that safe haven for them. You don't know what they're about to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes. You don't know how their life can turn around. You don't know how they can impact you,
mm,
you know, when you collaborate with that person. You just never know. Some of
yeah,
the times, some of the things that I never expected from people, it it tenfolded me. And what I mean by that, sometimes when I help somebody else, they came back and they remembered that when I was down
yeah,
and I needed help.
yeah,
So it's always important to remember where you come from. And I just want to get this stigma out of the way that, just because we men, we have to have it all figured out. You don't
oh,
have to have it
yeah.
all figured out. You're never going to have it all figured out. You know,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
good
And then
point. Yeah, good point. I mean, so I've just finished reading a book called "Be a Man About It." It's written by a guy from the UK called George Bell, and the reason he wrote the book is he wants to acknowledge the pressures that men are under to be a particular type of man. To know everything, to be able to do everything, to be that hero type of man. And what he talks about in the book is the real challenges that men face, if you like, because we are not socialized particularly to express ourselves emotionally. He calls it emotional suppression that we have as men, and he says that creates real challenges for us because we don't open up to others. We let it all build away inside, and then all of a sudden, the pressure, needs to release, and it might release by being angry to others, or it might be released by us being harmful to ourselves. But what he's saying is, we got to recognize that there's a lot of pressure out there for men, and that we need support. Those men need support because we don't want them to take that out on others. We don't want them to take it out on themselves. So I think if we can all do our little part, whatever that is, to help men around us through some of these things, and if we can drop this pretense that we all have to be, as you were saying, somehow super powered to be able to cope with anything as a man, we need to recognize there are times that as men we really don't know what we're doing or we haven't got it all together, and we need to be able to talk about that. But it's so hard. And one of my friends recently was talking about the fact that he's just experienced a situation where he's working, his wife is working, but because his work is not going so well, he's now earning less than his wife. And he said it's such a difficult thing as a man to earn less than your wife because you've been socialized to be the top breadwinner. So he's going through that at the moment, how to make an adjustment to that.
And I think that, you hit something you hit it on a very good, you hit the nail on the hammer. And I think that men, we are conditioned to like go and, get multiple jobs, try to take on longer shifts. But at the same time, we don't realize that we're burning ourselves out as well too.
Yeah,
We have to learn how to take breaks. And if that job is not working for you, it's okay to be a man and quit that job, but make sure you find something else before you do it. I'm the king
yeah,
of quitting jobs. jobs.
Okay.
I'm the king of that, okay?
Okay.
I take that
Okay.
title seriously. And let me tell you
Okay.
why. No, it's not something to be proud about, but then also it's like I understand my mental health. My mental health is greater than my job. No
Yeah.
amount of money is worth you dying.
Hmm.
And you have to understand that. And when you understand that logic, you're not going to be abused by the system that wants you to continue to work to build their business up. But
Yeah.
also they throw you away
Hmm.
when when you don't perform well or you're having your bad day. Or
Yeah.
they say, well, I see you've been having a whole bad week, but they don't blame it on the customers. They blame it on you.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole lot of nuances that jobs don't understand, that they don't care about their employees. And I'm always going to be the biggest advocate. If that job is not serving you, why are you still there? If you
Yeah.
haven't got your
Yeah.
promotion in 3 years, why are you still there? If you're in a toxic environment and you always have to be on the edge, why are you still there?
Yeah.
There's no reason to continue to be in those type of environments. You have to do what's best for you and only for you. And
Yeah.
if a job is willing to fire you when they have to talk to their shareholders or when things is not looking good and you're their best employee, what does that say about the other people about
Mm.
in the job? They don't care. They will fire you at a heartbeat. They don't care. And so
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that men, as much as you have to work, you have to always be pivoting to other careers in life too. You
Yeah,
know.
no, absolutely. And of course, Darren, the other big worry at the moment for many men is what's going on with AI. Like, are they going to be in jobs that are going to be replaced or significantly changed by AI? And that I think is something that we're just starting to see working through now. Um, and so I think the more that we can have conversations about what's happening there, provide support for people, I think that's going to be really, really important going forward.
Now I want to flip the conversation over to just like the business itself. Like, as you say, you've been working with men that maybe, are not up to business, acumen like they will want to be in their life. And, that's very disheartening because there's so much money in this world, but sometimes it feels like people don't have enough to go around for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I just recently had another guy on the podcast, and he was a business guy, and he was just telling me he was breaking it down, the assets, the liabilities, and all of that good stuff that people need to know so they can be,
Yeah,
better equated in their business or do better in business. But we talked about basically how, men can do better in their life if they understood the business side before they went into actually starting a business.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't always know what you're getting yourself into, right? Is that always
Right.
going to be that uncertainty that, we're just winging it every day, hoping for the
Yeah,
best. And sometimes you just don't have the right team. You don't have the right team and you don't have the right people to work for you. And so the business collapse, right?
yeah,
And there's no money, you know. If there's no money coming in, that means it's time to close shop, right?
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of people don't understand that they want to keep things going and going and going. And it's good, even when you start a business of your own and you have this idea or you have this spark and you're like, I don't have the employees for this, or I don't have the language to talk to the investors to get me to get in to buy into this business and stuff like
mm.
that. So what would you say to men that are like kind of questioning everything? They questioning everything from A to Z and they don't know where to start.
Well, I think one thing to do is to talk to others that maybe are either going through the same thing or have been through and come through the other side. So one of the things that I do in my role is act as a kind of mentor, if you like, to men to sort of share my experiences. I mean, I've been involved in a number of startups. I've been involved in a number of kind of companies and organizations on the board, etc. You kind of get to know over time, what's going to work and what some of the challenges are that mean that a lot of startups don't succeed. So I think. talking to others and gaining knowledge from others, I think is really, really important. And as I said earlier, not trying to pretend or feel that you've got to do it all yourself. I think by being open to the fact that you might need to work with others, you might need to collaborate with others. I think that's going to help you, succeed. Um, but I think we when we're starting business, I mean, business is tough because as you said, you don't know how it's going to go, and you've got to make judgments all along the way. Do I carry on investing? Do I pull back? Do I hire this person? Do I hire that person? Those are all difficult decisions, um, and I think hopefully over time we learn how to make those decisions better. If we can keep going, if we can keep our business going, or if we fail and we can pick ourselves up and start again, I think we can use those learnings to do better. And I think one of the things I like about the US, is you do get opportunities to pick yourself up from a failure and start again. It's a bit harder in Europe, I think, sometimes to do that. But I think it is important to learn when things aren't going how you'd like to go. Learn from those situations, but I think also reach out to others as well that have been through these situations to maybe advise you on what you can do. In the end, it's your decision. You've got to decide if you're the business owner. But I think reaching out to others is a great way to get extra input into the decisions you have to make.
Yeah, and it's tough, when you're starting a business and you have to work long hours. Like you have to in the beginning, you have
Yeah,
to work long hours. Like you have to be ready to work
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And you may not see revenue for a while.
yeah,
You may not see revenue for a while, so don't go and quit your job like I did. Like I did, thinking I was gonna just take off, take
yeah,
off real quick. That was the worst mistake of my life. And I think that you know, when I was in my early 20s, I made a lot of mistakes, just having ideas that never materialize or just never starting. That's the biggest
yeah,
problem sometimes because we have this overstimulated thought in our mind that if I start, I won't be successful. You know, sometimes people think that way. I even thought that way at one
yeah,
point. Like, just was scared. It was scared me. It scared me to start a talk show because
yeah,
I was not the most talkative person. Most people know me, personally. I was not the most
yeah,
talkative person. And I said, I gotta talk the entire time. But as
yeah,
you grow and
yeah,
you learn people and you learn how to, carry the conversation so it's productive and it doesn't feel forced, you
yes,
know, and you learn the business acumen. You learn that you cannot do it all alone. So
yeah,
I had to learn to step back on some of my businesses and say, I need help, you know, or I
yeah,
need to tell the people that I'm working with that, hey, this is not going good. Do you have any ideas? Because I'm out of ideas and I
mhm,
can't think no more because I'm doing it all. And I'm just
yeah,
like, I can't be, I can't do it all. Like, I can't
yeah,
be, you know, I can't be the producer. I can't be the editor. I can't be this. I can't be that. I
yeah,
can't do it all in 24 hours, right? And then I
yeah,
expect perfection and then expect for people to watch something, that just was
yeah,
half-assed, right? And so
yeah.
why do you think men are so afraid of just maybe starting their own business? What's some of the challenges that you think that, or misconceptions you think that they have about starting a business?
Well, I think it can be tough because it depends on what you're surrounded by when you're growing up. I mean, when I was growing up, my dad did run his own business, so uh, I learned a little bit from him, and that was kind of useful for me. I think so. So it does depend a bit on the environment. I think you grow up in, but I think like all of these things, it's about kind of giving it a try, basically. So doing your research for sure, trying to work out what kind of product you're bringing to the market, for example. What the market is for that. You can do your research about that. Obviously, you need to create a network of people to reach out to, people maybe to support you, but certainly potential customers as well. So I think it's kind of going through the different steps that you need to take to do this. and just getting started at it, because you don't know, as you said, when you start how it's going to go. But what you need to do is you need to learn along the way. So you need to be a really fast learner when things don't quite go right. This way, you course correct and you do something different, right? Okay. So what I've seen, and it's applied a little bit to me in my life, is you kind of need to constantly course correct, to take what you learned from a situation that didn't quite go as well as you hoped, and then apply that learning in a different context. And so what I would say to men that are thinking about kind of starting businesses, is do your research. Make sure you understand the market for what you're about to offer. Who else is out there doing it already? Can you talk to people that are doing it already? Can you get some insights into what the success is for them? So, for example, I helped one of my mentees set up a podcast. Okay, and how I helped to do that was I put her in touch with someone that I knew was a very successful podcaster. That's before I knew you, Darren, of course. But this was a woman who was very successful, and I put this a mentee of mine in touch with her, and now she's gone on to do a really successful podcast. So I think it is understanding who out there can help you, and then hopefully people are out there who want to pay it back. And someone like you, for example, I think you're now in a much better position, right? You can pay it back to others, and it's great when you can do that. So, but you need somebody at the beginning to have that bit of trust in you, bit of faith in you, and you need to have that trust and faith in yourself, obviously, to make it a success. So I would kind of just say to people, get started, but be honest. On a learning curve, you'll learn pretty quickly, and you can put those learnings to good use, to learn how to do things better.
Okay. I just got four more questions to ask you, and then we'll end the interview.
Sure.
The thing is, and these are going to be kind of a long questions, because I want to try to get to 40 minutes if I can. Um, and I just wanted to add, the first of my question is, when you first started your business, did you have any doubts or fears, when you first started? And who helped you? Like, because I mean, obviously, when you get starting a business, you have people that maybe be in your corner that know a little bit about what you're doing, or maybe you might have to
Mm.
outsource it. So who started to help you, and how did you navigate business, if you don't mind sharing?
No, 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 not at all. Well, I was quite lucky when I got started, because I had a business coach. So I had someone to work with who advised me on some of the things that I needed to do, and some of the discuss with me some of the challenges that I faced. Now, obviously, not everybody can afford to have a business coach, which is why I'm saying sometimes we should reach out to others that have been there before us and ask them for their support. But that business coach was really useful for me because they'd been there before. They were more experienced in business than I was, and they were helping me anticipate some of the problems that I was going to face as I was starting my business. So, yeah, I was nervous about starting a business, because I hadn't done that before. So I knew there was going to be something new. I think the good thing was I was basing my business on something I knew I could do. So I knew I could deliver it, and I knew there was a market for it. So I think, for me, that gave me more confidence. It wasn't a completely, wild shot, that I would be able to run this business. Um, so I think, yes, I had a degree of confidence that I was in the right place with my business, but I needed that support from my business coach to help me, to ask those difficult questions, to raise the challenges that I'd like to face, and for us to kind of work on that together. And I had the business coach for about a year, uh, and then that was a great way to get started, to really launch myself from there.
And I think before I move on to my other three questions, I think it's important that, men to know that it's okay to make the mistakes early in your business, right?
Yeah.
We have this idea that we have to come in knowing everything or doing everything ourselves, when that's just not the reality. You really have to have a good team around you in order
Yes.
to, succeed in whatever you're doing, whether it's podcasting or talk show, whether it's trying to start a business from the ground up, restaurant, retail, whatever it is. You
Yeah.
have to have people around you that kind of know what they're doing and where the direction of the business is going to go to. Because it's not always easy to do everything that you need to do, because it's it's not going to always be a fresh start. It's not going to always be a fresh start.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
need to understand that you're going to make a lot of mistakes when you're doing the business, and it's just going to be what it is. And so my second question is,
yeah,
um, when you started your business and you started to see growth in it, did that change you as a person, or did it kind of did it kind of what's the word? What did it kind of like reinforce that? Okay, I'm doing good now. I might need more help, or did you not need help? Were you able to sustain the business? What was that? What was that like once it started to grow up? Get off
yeah.
the ground.
Well, of course, it's very exciting when you start to see your business growing, when you have customers coming to you and more customers coming, and that's great. And part of the way that I made that happen was I reached out to other people that had customers that might have a need for the thing that I provided. So I subcontracted to a few other consultancies as well. So I had quite a network of people out there. But yeah, it is great when you get that first growth, and then what you've got to do obviously is work to build on that growth and to sustain that growth. I was very lucky, I think, because I didn't have, I did have people coming to me directly from word of mouth. People found out about me. My network told other people about me. So in that sense, my marketing needs weren't as strong as if nobody knew me. So I think that was a great thing to build up that network over time, so that when I launched my business, I was able to reach out to a lot of people in my network to say, "Hey, I'm here now. I'm doing this. You should hear about it. Let's get the coffee. Let's talk." So that was really great. But yeah, it's super exciting when you start to see things grow. I think what I decided, however, was I, I didn't necessarily want to build an empire with my business. I was very happy to maybe add one or two people to my team, but I wasn't trying to create multiple hundred sort of people organization, because I'd done that previously in my corporate role. And for me now, what I really enjoyed was being that kind of professional advisor, who was there for that reason, but didn't necessarily need to. People were buying me basically. So in other words, it was very hard for me to hire somebody else to replace me. People were hiring me, who I was. So I think that made the difference in my situation. Had I been in a different type of business, yes, I probably would have tried to grow it faster. But for me, I was very comfortable with the fact that people were hiring me. I was making a decent living from doing that. I didn't need, to have a huge yacht or a big fancy house or whatever. So I was very happy with the level of income that I was getting in. Excuse me.
Good. That's good that you have people around you to kind of facilitate and help you on that aspect. Um, and for me personally, I think that when I start to see really growth, like when our TikTok exploded and we started to get more traction and people wanted to come on, to the show and start messing with us, that first year was a
Yeah.
lot of work, but it taught me that if you continue to keep that momentum going, you can see growth. And we steadily kept seeing growth. We started from
Yeah.
zero and now we're almost at 2,000 followers.
Wow.
And that's not something to take lightly from, because you know you have to continuously keep posting. And in our first season, we was
Yes.
burnt out. When I
Yes.
tell you, we did a lot of different things, edits, clips, trying to get people to come on the show, coordinating, late at night. Like, it was nonstop, and it just
Yeah.
it felt so good because it was like the momentum was there.
Yes.
But now we got to talk about the bad side of business, where the momentum goes down and you don't get
Yeah.
clients, and you don't see the revenue. Like, what is your perspective about that? Well, how do you know, I mean, obviously you can't control other people. They either going to want to buy your services or
Yeah.
come on the show and stuff like that. But what do you say when those low moments, when you're at your low moments and you don't see that momentum like you first did when you first started, or maybe it's
Yeah.
your second or third year and now things are starting to go down. What's the motivation to keep you going? Because it can't be
Yeah.
just money, right?
No, 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 absolutely. Well, I love what I do. So I think, having a purpose and like loving what I do is kind of critical, because that keeps me going, even when things are not necessarily coming in revenue wise. I mean, I also do a lot of pro bono stuff for free. So I work with a lot of women's networks, a lot of organizations that can't afford to pay fully for my services. Excuse me. So I can keep busy with things like that, even if the revenue isn't flowing in as much. And yeah, there are times when takes a dip, because sometimes it could be because of the economy. Clients are getting worried about spending, so they'll pull back on spending. So yeah, I think you've got to be able to cope with the fact that things do go up and down, which is why when you're doing well, keep some of it saved for a rainy day, because basically there's going to come a rainy day and you need to make sure you've got something in the bank when things get a bit tougher.
Yes, and then the last question for today, I do thank you for coming on here. And I just wanted to say I really enjoyed this conversation, Robert. It's really been um, interesting to get to meet you and your background and understand what you do, for your clients and how you're making a difference as well too. And
Yeah,
that's why I always try to bring on people that aligns with, some of my same values and attributes that we do with the show. We're helping other people
yeah.
ultimately. And while we can't help everybody, um, has there ever been a person that came to you that maybe you just did not, could not work with, or you know, um, help in help their business get off the ground?
That's a really interesting question. I think there have definitely been some people that I found it hard to work with, and we were going to collaborate in a business. Um, this was a few years ago, and it didn't go anywhere because they weren't really putting in the work that was required. And I think when you partner with other people, or you collaborate with other people to set up business, you kind of got to both put yourselves into it to the same degree. You can't have one person doing all the work and the other person kind of freeloading or taking it easy. Because you said when you start a business, it's a huge amount of work up front. And I think what I found was there was one person I was working with. I thought, like, this is not going well because I'm doing all the work. They're not really doing much. And, so why am I carrying this person? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, yeah, there was a time when I couldn't help that person succeed with that particular collaboration because they weren't prepared to put the amount of effort in that was required. So the big decision I had to make was to get out of that situation, and I probably stayed a bit too long, to be honest with you, just hoping I could turn things around, hoping I could encourage this person to give more. But in the end, I realized that they weren't interested in doing that. So the best thing to do was to call it a day. We finished our collaboration, and that particular company or that particular project didn't ever take off. Um, so it does happen, but I'm very happy to say that most of the collaborations I've worked on have yielded something, and I'm still optimistic that there'll be more to come in the future. So I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate, because I think when we collaborate with others, we learn from each other. We also support each other. We grow stronger together. I'm still keen to do that, and to learn from the one or two situations where it didn't go right, to say, okay, fine, next time I'm going to work with somebody, I now know some of the things not to want to look for, or not what to accept. So yeah, as you said earlier, we're all in a learning curve with this kind of stuff, and I think for me the key is the quicker you learn, the better, because we're all trying to get we're all trying to make progress in a hurry, and so if you take too much time to learn, or you're too slow, then that creates a challenge too. So hopefully that gives you some idea of some of the challenges I've had.
Yes. I do thank you, Robert, for coming on here. But where can people find you if they want to collaborate with you, if they're trying to start a business and they need help? Where can they find you?
So the place I hang out mostly is on LinkedIn. So if you look for Robert Baker at Potentia Talent Consulting on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd be very happy to follow up with conversations or whatever support people need.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you, Robert, for doing this. You didn't have to do this at all, but I do thank you for your wisdom and your expertise. And if I know somebody that is willing to, like, starting a business and they need help, is it okay to refer them to you, or
Of course.
are you only accepting certain type of clients?
Well, I'll talk to anybody, right? And then we see where it goes from there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you go, Robert. And you have a enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good one.
Thanks, Darren. Great to meet you, and look forward to hearing the podcast in due course.
Yes, it'll be coming out very soon. Trust me.
Okay, take care.
Take care.